meet my bride. Let's go for a ride in my newfangled automobile. Just where we will go, nobody knows, but it's sure a great way to feel. Behind the wheel of the speed meter steel, it's my newfangled automobile.
Hello and welcome to Vintage Car History. I'm Wild Bill. The world's first road-going motor vehicle was built by Nicolas Cugnot in 1769, and it was designed for military purposes, to be used as a gun tractor to haul artillery pieces on and off a battlefield. This machine was innovative, but it was not a car. It would be over 130 years before a car would be built for battlefield use. And today, we'll be looking at the genesis of this car and its military record. So let's begin with Frederick Sims. Sims was a British engineer, though actually born in Germany and educated there, that befriended Gottlieb Daimler, and as a result got into engines and cars. Quite a capable inventor and businessman himself, Sims and Daimler joined forces in the 1890s, with Sims selling Daimler engines and various speedboats at first, but eventually building Daimler engines in London under license from Daimler. This would be the beginning of what would become British Daimler. Sims really caught the car bug in 1894 when seeing some of the French cars compete at the Paris-Rouen trials and decided to bring some back to Britain and start building them himself, which by the following year he had the facilities in place and was building prototypes still under the Daimler license. By 1896, they were in full production, and this caught the attention of Harry Lawson. Harry and Frederick did work together at first, but within months, Sims started to lose confidence in his partner and began maintaining a professional distance. However, it was through this partnership that Sims met Lawson's right-hand man, the mediocre engineer turned con man, Edward Pennington. And as it turned out, for once in his life, he actually had a good idea, a fighting autocar. Pennington was quite excited about his idea and discussed it with Sims at some length, in late 1896, early 1897. His idea was to take the three-wheeled contraption he called a car, wrap the thing in armor, and mount machine guns on it. Now, Pennington's actual design wasn't really feasible, as the car it was based on couldn't move itself, much less all the extra weight, but that didn't stop Pennington from filing a patent for it in October of 1896. Well, within a few years, Pennington was bankrupt and back in the U.S., so Sims just ignored the patent and continued with his own design. He already had his own factory making cars, so he chose to use one of his own built light truck chassis to base the car on. Four-wheeled and gunned and armored, Sims filed his own patent for a motor-driven car for use in warfare in 1898, and his patent got the attention of the British Army. Things in South Africa were heating up, especially in the aftermath of the recent ill-fated Jameson raid. The British generals knew war was imminent, and a battle car could be a potential weapon in such a conflict. They contacted Sims and placed an order for a prototype to be delivered for testing by August of 1899. Coincidentally, only 2 months before the Second Boer War actually began. This gave Sims about a year to get it built, and he was confident he could do so. Now, he did consider building the car with 4 wheels in a diamond pattern, kind of like the contemporary Sunbeam Mabley, but in the end delivered a conventional 4-wheeled machine. The chassis was a 1-ton truck built by Sims. Power was provided by a 16-horsepower, 4-cylinder, centrally mounted Daimler engine and a 4-speed gearbox, also provided by Daimler. And that's 4 forward speeds up to a maximum of 9 miles per hour. The transmission itself was not equipped with a reverse gear. Note that the car was steered by the rear wheels, themselves being solid rubber on wood spokes and banded with a steel tire. The front wheels were bigger, being 4 feet in diameter and half a foot wide, and the rears being 3 feet and 3.5 inches. The final drive was through chains. But what was very unusual was the clutch and control systems that Sims devised. The driver would steer it with a steering wheel as usual, but then things get funky. To get the thing moving, you had 3 levers and 2 pedals. 2 of the levers each selected 2 of the available gears, while the third chose forward or reverse, using a separate system. One pedal was a friction clutch, the other the brakes, which were large drums operating on the rear and also steering wheels only. It was a very complex system, and driving this thing was no easy feat. And here's where Sims needed help. Making fenders and making armor are 2 very different things, and he'd need help with that. He actually patented a type of armor himself in 1898 and intended to use it for automotive use, but lacked the facilities to make it. So he'd reached out to the Vickers, Sons, and Maxim Company to do the weapons, armor, and initial testing under his direction. With armor mounted, the car would have a footprint that was cigar-shaped from the top, and from the side kind of looked like a giant hoof. The armor itself was 6 millimeters thick, though the actual type of armor was never specified. They had a challenge with it, though, as the car itself had solid tires, stiff leaf springs, and nothing else for suspension. They ended up having to weld the armor onto its own springs, as riveting didn't work. They shook out as the armor would just fall off from the vibration. The 2 guns were mounted on swivel turrets, 1 on each end of the car. The Maxim quick-firing .303 caliber machine gun was chosen, and the car could carry 10,000 rounds of ammo. Overall, the machine weighed about 5.5 tons and had a theoretical range of about 200 miles on 1 tank of fuel. Sims did promise the car to the Army by 1899, but it was not completed until the war was over. By the time the car was ready in 1902, the War Office had lost interest and didn't even look at it. He took it to a few trade shows, touting it as a coastal defense and anti-partisan vehicle, but his design didn't catch on. The idea, however, lives on to this day, and the Sims motor war car was the first of the world's battle cars. Thanks for watching Vintage Car History, and we'll see you next week. Peace.